call to order the Wednesday, March 15th meeting of the Lake Havasu Advisory Board. We begin the meeting with a call to Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is the roll call. Would you conduct a roll call, please, Ronnie?
Yes, Shannon Stebbins.
Here.
Lewis Worthy.
Here.
Stephen Huff. Mark McKenna. David McNary.
Here.
Jeff Sayer. Benjamin Strader.
Here.
Bill Boyer.
Here.
Did I miss anyone? Thank you.
Mr. Boyer is doing double duty for this evening's meeting. He's running the cameras, plus be participating from the rear. First, the next item is approval of the February 15th, 2017 meeting agenda, which are minutes of the meeting, which was provided to you. I would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Any opposed? Unanimously approved. The next item is the airport supervisor's report. We'll ask Mr. Johnson to give us that.
It should be short and sweet this time around. We had our AWAS annual inspection last week, and everything was copacetic and passed. The Royal Canadian Air Force completed their mission last Saturday, and they've left. They'll be back in about a year from now. We've had a banner tow outfit on site, I believe Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. They now exited as well. C-130 visited yesterday, I think from California, not 100% sure. We've had some F-16s doing touch and goes, so you'll note a little extra noise out there, about 1 or 2 a day. The runway pavement for runway 3214 is failing. As you all recall, we had an overlay with a state grant about 3 years ago. And we have areas that are now raveling. Raveling is basically where the asphalt starts to pop up. And then some areas where some crack sealant that was applied under the overlay has now come up through the overlay. So we're investigating different methods to deal with that. We have some paving. It's not a seal coat, though that's the only thing right now that's coming to mind, but it's a product that basically, for all intensive purposes, glues the pavement down, binds it together. I've talked to Deer Valley and Goodyear airports in the Phoenix area. They've utilized it heavily. It works quite well, so it's got a great reputation. And we'll be moving forward on a test patch on Alpha 1, the connector for runway 32. We've done a couple small areas, but we're going to do that and see how that works for us. Let's see here, what else? We'll be pursuing spot repairs on the runway. We've talked to an engineer on how to deal with some of the crack sealant issues, and we will be documenting all of that. We'll also attempt to pursue grant funding via the FAA. They're not aware of this yet. We will have a meeting with them probably in about 3 months, our annual capital improvement program meeting with FAA and ADOT. Again, it was an ADOT grant, by the way, that in the overlay. At this point, not going to cast aspersions, though I'm not particularly happy about the whole situation. We'll take a sample of the pavement to show to the FAA and ADOT at the meeting. We just had an ADOT contractor that every 2 or 3 years comes out and does pavement condition index an evaluation. All of this was pointed out to them, so I'm assuming that those numbers are going to be low on the runway, which will be more evidence. And then hopefully we might be able to wrangle something out of the feds. The state, unfortunately, is in a situation where the aeronautics grant funds, other than matches for federal grants, so that's a 5% match, those have disappeared for a while. They were swept. And so trying to get any assistance out of ADOT is going to be difficult at best for the next couple of years. So again, that's one of the reasons why I'm going to hit up the FAA with ADOT present, without blaming anybody at the moment anyway, and go down that road. Let's see here. That will mean that our project CIPs that you all have seen in the past, those are all going to shift based on if we get help from the feds on the runway. All the priorities basically will shift because of that. And today met with the city, so we've gone through our first draft budget discussion. And then we'll see where the airport budget goes from that. So that's all for now.
Any update on the changing of Hangar Way to Molitor Way?
I reviewed and I think you all got copies of this at the last airport board meeting, the instructions for that. I need to get my hands on a form, fill it out, and then send it through a review committee. And then eventually it goes to city council for ratification. But it's just a matter of getting the paperwork, filling it out, and sending it through process at this point.
Do you have a timeline on that?
As soon as I have the paperwork, it'll be filled out. So I hope to have something in, if not late this week, early next.
Any other questions? Thank you. The next item is the report on the Hangar 24 grand opening and the B-17 visit. On the screen is a photo of the B-17, and we'll run several photos through of the events that occurred February 23rd to the 25th. We had 3 days of events at the airport, of which the B-17 was the centerpiece. Hangar 24 is a restaurant. Their grand opening occurred on Saturday, the 24th. We believe we had over 6,000 people attend the event over the 3 days period. The B-17 had 147 passenger flights, and 129 of those were paid, so it was a great success. The total revenue generated was somewhere in excess of $129,000 for the 3 days. We also believe that we generated about 300 hotel nights for the city of Lake Havasu, so a substantial economic impact to the city off of this. And I think everybody had a great time out there. I had a lot of positive comments from the B-17. For upcoming airport events, the Young Eagles, there's going to be a Young Eagles flight on March 25th from 9 a.m. till 1 p.m. And that's where the Experimental Aircraft Association takes children or kids for free airplane rides. It's open to kids 8 to 17 inclusive, and it's about a 30-minute flight around the city and back to land at Lake Havasu. The kids are then given a logbook. They're given a certificate of completion, and they're also given a unique access number to the EAA website for Young Eagles, and on that website there are educational programs for kids to include a private pilot ground school course. So if anyone's interested in having your grandchildren or children receive a free flight, you can contact the airport and they'll get in touch with the number of someone to call and make a appointment and reservation with. Any other comments on announcements and supervisory report from any board member? Move along to the public hearings. Public hearings are also a call to the public. We don't have anybody here tonight, but we'll go over it real quick. Anyone that wishes to address the board on any issue that this board has purview to is welcome to attend the meeting, and they can speak before the the meeting or during the meeting on any subject they'd like to. The board members are not allowed to interact during those discussions. The board members can correct facts and can ask for items to be put on a future agenda. Each of the public hearings also has a section for public comment as well under those same rules. The first one is the requirements to become a Federal Aviation Part 139 airport. I'll lead that off. This has been on the agenda for 3 or 4 months, maybe more. It's become an item that it's huge. It's amazing how large it is. Talking to Steve, we decided that it would be best, at least we think it's best, we asked the FAA to just come out and conduct a courtesy inspection to let us know from their viewpoint what they thought, instead of us floundering around. That, coupled with the fact that the reality of having scheduled air service at our airport over the next few years is probably slim, it seems pointless to expend any more energy on this. So I'll open it up to any member of the board that has any comments to make. My recommendation is going to be to have the inspection done, revisit it after that, and to remove this item from the agenda. Discussion?
I think that's a great idea. It's kind of putting the horse in front of the cart this time.
We probably should vote on this to remove it from the agenda. Do I have a motion?
A motion.
Second.
Any opposed? Unanimously approved. The next item is presentation of a draft airport vision statement. We handed out a piece of paper with a draft vision statement on it. Under that is the verbiage taken from our present approved master plan, and that's a document that is approved, was submitted to the City Council and is approved by them, so it's official language. Our present master plan goals and objectives state the following. The primary objective of the Lake Havasu City Municipal Airport Master Plan is to develop and maintain a financially feasible long-term development program which will satisfy aviation demand, be compatible with community development, other transportation modes, and the environment, and be a source of employment and revenue for the city and surrounding areas. So the proposed draft vision statement reads as follows. Position and maintain the Lake Havasu City Airport as the airport of choice for the region and fully support the present and future economic needs of Lake Havasu City. So I'd open it up now for any discussion from the board members. Are you prepared to vote on this tonight, or would you prefer to carry this over to next week or next month, have some time to think about it? Anyone?
So are we proposing to vote to make this, to submit this to be the actual language?
This wouldn't actually be submitted to anyone other than staff to be included as the heading for our next airport master plan, the vision that the master plan is supposed to support. And at that time, it would go to the City Council as a part of the master plan for their approval.
Well, it's easy to sort of armchair quarterback, but at the moment it seems a little bit on the thin side. Maybe it could use a little bit more discussion on
That's fine.
clarifying. I don't know. So maybe my vote is to not vote tonight.
Okay, that's fine. Any other discussion? Without objection, then we'll table this, and anyone that has changes, please present them at the next meeting, and we'll try to vote on a finalized version of it. The next item is discussion of local application of new FAA hangar use policy. Realizing there's no one in attendance tonight, if anyone's watching this on a replay on television and you have a connection to an airport hangar at the airport, we'd certainly invite you to come to the next meeting and participate in a discussion on the use of the airport hangar policy. The policy that we're referring to is the Federal Aviation Administration's federal rule, and that can be accessed by Googling the June 15th, 2016 Federal Register, and it will come up and you can print the document from there. The genesis of this is that the FAA put out a notice of proposed rulemaking. It's called an NPRM in June of 2014. They received several thousand comments during a 2-year comment period and issued a final rule this past June of 16. The first several pages of this document are a compilation of the many thousands of responses that were given and the FAA's specific response to each of those. And then once you get way to the back, the actual rule that they have published is in place. And it's not, the final policy is only a couple of pages. It addresses the use of aeronautical land and facilities, the applicability, the general, talk about the no right to non-aviation use, sponsor compliant actions, and they're very specific about what we, the city, as the airport sponsor, have to do. They talk about the ability to approve a non-aviation use of hangars if there's no demand, and the steps to take, and the use of hangars. The nuts and bolts of this basically are that hangars are to be used for aviation aeronautical purposes. There are, by this rule, allowed to have non-aviation or non-aeronautical items stored in the hangar, but they cannot interfere with the aviation aeronautical use of the hangar. This policy goes into effect June the 1st of 2017, and that is the date that we will need to start enforcing it. So if you are tied to or have an interest in a hangar at the Lake Havasu City Airport, certainly invite you to contact the airport office, contact me or any member of the airport board, and we'd be happy to discuss it. Any discussion from other board members on this topic tonight? Mr. Trader.
So I guess my question is, you mentioned beginning enforcement. I wonder what that means. Do we have a procedure or a policy or a way to do that, or is that something more like in your department, Steve? How does that work? Do we send them a nice letter and hope they respond, or do we send the police department over with the Gestapo and kick all their stuff out? How does the process? Is there a process?
Yes, there is. It's actually covered in the lead up to the final rule. It's talked about in this document. The airport is required to do inspections and compliance inspections, and those will probably be done every 2 years along with the fire inspections. But it's very clear in here that the airport sponsor must conduct inspections and must be the one that ensures that it is enforced. Now, enforcement of it is left up to the airport sponsor, with the FAA reserving the right to just tell the airport sponsor that we will withhold grant funds, or we can go back and recover grant funds from you if you don't enforce it. So that's their carrot and stick, so to speak. Mr. Johnson?
If I may add to that, I anticipate a public meeting or two, a mailing, probably an article in the newspaper. And again, I'm thinking at least a couple of meetings that we invite people to, where it's explained exactly what it means. And the bugaboo that was brought up at the last meeting, actually it's been brought up a number of times, and that is, okay, so are you going to abide by the FAA policy as stated, or are you going to add to it? And again, the FAA allows us to do that. Both I and the city attorney have agreed that no, we're going to go with the lay of the land as regards to the federal policy, and we're not going to go beyond that. But I think it's going to be in everybody's best interest to have some public meetings, to have some articles, to have some mailings before we go down the road of going out inspecting.
So based on the currently available information, do you anticipate having the need to enforce? Are there out of compliance areas now that we need to know, think about or be aware of?
We, as airports go, we are in pretty good shape.
Okay.
There are some that I can name in Southern California where you could make a career out of, and then some, out of a compliance dynamic. There are some hangars here that are going to require some work. And I would suspect that we're going to have some tenants that try to utilize arguments that I've been doing it for the last 25 years, so I should be able to do it until, you know, the earth ends. And that's not the case. We do not want to put our ability to get grant funds and not burden the local taxpayers with improvements at the airport at risk. And again, this is a big deal. Now, as far as timelines go, I've really not looked at that yet, but I'll put it this way. The approach, at least I envision utilizing, is not one that was utilized at Glendale Airport, the poster child for this whole mess. It'll be a matter of being reasonable, allowing people to clean up their act over a given period of time. I don't know what that period of time is right now, and I think each situation is going to be a wee bit different.
Sorry to interrupt. Are there any timelines set forth by the FAA to do that, or we just get to do it on our own?
The FAA's really not come down and said, they've said their policy comes into effect, it's either this June or July. Beyond that, they've not given any guidance as to you, airports, shall have this done within a period of time. So that's actually a good thing in our case, since by the time we start moving down this road, a number of our snowbirds will have headed back north and east. And so it will take some time to work through this.
Okay.
Any other discussion? I believe that takes care of all of our public hearings. It brings us to future agenda items. Anybody on the board propose a future agenda item? The things that I'm aware of would be the carryover of the vision statement from this month, carryover of Hangar Use Policy again, as we want to continue to try to keep getting the word out to as many people as we can, and to begin a dialogue with them that's a precursor to an inspection and being told that you need to do something to comply. It's much easier if we can talk about it and get it resolved before the fact. The other thing that I have that is that we have talked in the past about our responsibilities to advise the City Council on the airport budget. I have a hard time just understanding some of the line items in the budget, how the depreciation works, and other things like that. So I would like to know from Mr. Johnson if we could invite somebody from the Lake Havasu Finance Department to attend the meeting and just give us a briefing, a 10, 12-minute briefing on the budget, not necessarily the line by line item, but how to read it and what it means, and kind of a budget 101 for dummies.
I'll make that request tomorrow.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
If I may, I'm not going to be able to make it to the April meeting. If we could postpone that to the May meeting.
Okay.
That also will give the Finance Department an opportunity to get the budget moving to a level that there's something to discuss. It would be after the council work session on the budget.
That'd be great. Any other items? Any board member like to make any comments about any other thing? Mr. Boyer?
I'm fine.
Okay, that brings us to future meetings, which is Wednesday, April 19th, 2017. That'll be our next meeting. It'll be held here at 5:30 in the afternoon. If there's no more discussion, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
Without objection, the meeting of the Lake Havasu Airport Advisory Board is adjourned.